Welcome to Non-Dual Meditation with Meister Eckhart. In this series, we practice non-dual meditation inspired by the teachings of Meister Eckhart, Europe's remarkably distinguished mystic who passed on in 1327. The teachings that we are utilizing were actually the condemnations that were brought forth by the French papal court. And here, ironically, we are reviewing these condemnations to help us understand the perspective of the mystic and also to support our modulation into the meditative placement of attention, which is non-dual. So we're up to the 10th article, and I'm going to read the entire article to you. And of course, this is a Dominican priest who is very familiar with the sacraments. I surely recognize that not only Christians are listening to this broadcast, and I respectfully will review this article to help you understand the article as best I can. The article reads, it's 3 sentences, and we'll start with the first one. We shall all be transformed totally into God and changed into Him. In the same way, when in the sacrament bread is changed into Christ's body, I am so changed into Him that He makes me His one existence and not just similar. By the living God it is true that there is no distinction there. And so the mystic has proclaimed and confessed his revelation, and Meister Eckhart had indeed continued to confess his revelation throughout his ministry, and understandably it produced some tensions. Let's recognize that Meister Eckhart is suggesting that he has complete communion with the Godhead. And this statement is difficult for the Western tradition because we organize, generally speaking, we organize the infinite life. We organize Godhead and the universe basically as a monarchy. Yes, the kingdom of God, Lord of Lords, a politically oriented universe with a person or an authority that runs it. And we're seeing a very different perspective. Essentially, we are looking at the democracy of God, that the infinite life gives itself completely to its creation at every point. That means that everything, everyone, every event is that everything. In other words, it is the whole. And this can be integrated, and Meister Eckhart embodied that integration. He was both a dualist and a non-dualist. Importantly, folks, we need to recognize that it's neither one or the other, that duality and non-duality are a simultaneity. And wisdom recognizes this and is very comfortable with it. We can live in paradox. Also, in various spiritual traditions, for example, Catholicism, we need to accept the process of maturation. A 5-year-old has a different perspective than a 12-year-old, and a 12-year-old has a different perspective than a 30-year-old. And very often, the 30-year-old has a very different perspective than the 70-year-old. And so there is evolving. And if you look at your own spiritual tradition, you will recall some changes that have likely occurred for you also. We shall all be transformed totally into God and changed into Him, not just similar. This has to do with the meditative placement of attention in which we shift into non-dual awareness. The subject-object relationship is collapsed and we experience life as just happening, not happening to anybody. The idea that life is happening to us is a dual perspective. It is legitimate, it is valid. We are certainly not suggesting that this is not the case. We are simply recognizing that non-duality, the unified field, organizes all diversity and is in fact all diversity. Okay, and let me look at the next. By the living God, it is true that there is no distinction there. By the living God, there is, for Meister Eckhart, there is no intrinsic essential distinction between God and Himself. Now, when you think about Himself, He's not discussing the narrow conceptualization that we have about ourselves. You know, most of us do not recognize the fact that we are breathing, that the environment and what we call ourselves is one thing. No air, no you, no sun, no light, no heat, no you. Thus, the environment and ourselves are a singularity. And this is the I am. Very similar to the lucid dream, folks. When we dream lucidly, we notice as we're dreaming that we're a dream image in a dreamscape. And that both the image of ourself, the perceiver, and the object of perception, the dreamscape, is one thing. Us dreaming, the transcendent dreamer. Dreams, if you will, are provided for us that we may understand this plane of existence better. The Hindus have embraced it. They call that Brahman. God is Brahman, and this being the dream of Brahman. Let's read it one more time, and we'll then modulate to the meditative placement of attention. The article 10. We shall all be transformed totally into God and changed into Him in the same way when in the sacrament of bread is changed into Christ's body. I am so changed into Him that He makes me His one existence and not just similar. By the living God, it is true that there is no distinction there. Let's begin our modulation into the meditative placement with deep breathing. Beautiful windy day today. And as we begin to deep breathe, we practice deep breathing. Allow yourself to slowly turn down the volume in the mind's conceptualizing. Our mind consistently conceptualizes our experience. We are shifting into the meditative placement of attention while we're practicing our deep breathing. We will be modulating into it is as it is, life be just happening. Let's begin with the expulsion through the throat. Very slow inhalation, very big. Breathe through the nose. Hold your breath. Breathing in through the nose. Funnel the air in. Up towards the head, filling up completely. Hold your breath. Breathe. Fill up. Hold. Let's now modulate into the non-dual meditative placement of attention by coming to our senses. Listen closely, suspending opinions, judgments, commentaries. Listen close. Radically accepting this experience without question. Suspending desire, wanting for nothing. Shall be transformed into God, not just similar. Relax completely. Radically accepting all sensations with generosity and even affection. And let's debrief. So again, we recognize that the non-dual placement of our attention has no subject. Or we might say that it is infinitely subjective. you and I are essentially that one single existence. Every thought, every impulse, every act, whether virtuous or unvirtuous, is a cosmic event. And it is here that we find infinite compassion and the remarkable breadth that includes the sublime and the horrible. We modulate to a placement that is radically accepting of life and death, of sensations, of limitation. Recognizing this to be the drama of the divine. Wonderful understanding. We will be encountering more of this type of understanding in the coming articles. I encourage you to continue to tune in and to listen to this discussion and to take the time to practice modulating, even for these short instances, into the meditative placement of attention. What is important is that we understand what the non-dual meditative placement of attention is. We understand also that that same placement it may be superimposed upon relativity, and of course relativity superimposed on the absolute. Very much, folks, like that beautiful symbol of the Tao. We see the two cells in the singularity in the circle. A marvelous, awesome symbol. Well, they certainly captured it. Unity in diversity. We understand it intellectually, and that is enough. That is enough to guide the modulation, the operation of mind, so that we enter and relapse into a non-dual perspective and begin to be transformed. We do develop impressions while exposed to the non-dual reality. So we are conceptually changed, and you can see it with Meister Eckhart. His conceptualizations are consistent with his realizations. Thank you for tuning in. Come back soon. We'll be looking at Article 11. Thank you.